Alrighty, everybody. Our next session here is session 11, and I like to entitle it, Is it a deal or a dud? Okay. The reason we came up with this session is I've seen like 30, 40-year professionals in real estate get a listing and they literally like break down. They get overwhelmed. And it's normal. Okay. But what you have to realize is not every deal, every note on a spreadsheet is a deal. Many of them are just duds, depending on the pricing, depending on where they're located. A lot of times hedge funds or banks will have a list and they want specific pricing. Well, that might make sense for some of them, but it sure as hell doesn't make sense for all of them. And you don't need to approach, like, especially realtors struggle with this. Oh, I have a buyer for every one of these. You need to be the buyer. You need to buy for your own portfolio first. Forget about taking orders from somebody else. What would you buy for your own portfolio? What are you looking to accomplish? I had a realtor the other day. Oh, my investor. And I'm like, your investor, okay, are you buying these for yourself? Oh, no, I'm going to flip this to somebody else. I'm like, that's not the same thing. You're overbidding on some of these based on that asset, based on what you're doing. That's why I always tell folks, like, you're making offers, book a call with me. Let's talk. Let's go through a couple of things to make sure you're not making a mistake. Because there's things that'll vary. And you got to consider things before buying. This is just a list. It's not meant to scare you away. It's meant just things that consider. Like, look at the servicing notes. The seller should provide the notes from the servicing company for you to read through. And sometimes it's a little difficult to read, but you still got to read through it. They'll tell you if the borrower is called in or it's been the servicing company calling out. The borrower has been friendly, would like to do a mod or something like that. It literally will tell you a lot of that information. Look at the payment history. What happened? Was the borrower on time prior to COVID? Then they started not paying because of COVID? Well, we know what happened there. Or were they not paying before COVID? They've never paid. Well, they were delinquent prior to COVID. Because anybody that wanted to modify or get back on track has had plenty get out of jail cards the last 3 years. Okay. You got to look at market values. Is it going up? Is it going down? You got to look at the days in market. I don't usually buy anything where the days in market are longer than 120 days. If I do, I reduce my bid. It's hard to know what kind of repairs are needed. If the exterior of the property is in pretty good shape and it's occupied, the inside is going to be in probably pretty decent shape, excluding paint, carpet, and some light touch-up. Okay. I've had deals I bought that were just basically all I did was change the keys and slap the property on the property on the MLS. Others, we had to do full rehabs. Okay. This is why it's always encouraging to buy occupied assets first and foremost versus vacant. Your foreclosure time frame, what's going on in the state, where is the legal process started, where's it going to end up? And then I say neighborhood variables, like if it's in Chicago and South Chicago, is there crime going on? There's a lot of gang activity. You got to know these things. Okay. Look for zoning violations or issues. This is worth calling the zoning department in the county. Hey, is there issues with the property? Is there weeds? Is there weed liens on the property? City government issues. This is another thing too, like what I talked about Cleveland wanting to throw a $10,000 bond on every property you're rehabbing. That's something I don't like. Okay. Austin, Texas here with the city not pushing the homeless where people didn't camp. Is there a big homeless encampment nearby? Look at your crime map of each city. Gary, Indiana, like an example. I've been shot at twice while I was in Gary. Yes, shot at twice. Because you got to know, like Memphis. Memphis has good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods, and they may just be a block over from each other. We've talked about size and population of the city. This is important when you're first starting off, making sure you've got plenty of people there. Look at the exterior condition of the asset. Is there some pride of ownership? There's emotional equity. What's going on there? It will tell you if the borrower wants to stay or if they want to go. If it's a rural location, unless you're looking for land in the same areas, realize it's going to be harder for you to take that asset and control it and protect it. Local colleges is a great thing to consider because in their worst case, you've got a built-in rental or a short-term like weekend rental in different parts. I've had property up in like South Bend, Indiana. We took the property back and turned it into a weekend rental for a couple of years. And we just rented out for home games and basketball games. Okay. Overall, you got to ask yourself, does this asset meet your strategy? Number one strategy is, cash flow. Is the cash flow good with it being a performing or reperforming note? Can I get a large check if I accept a deed in lieu or cash for keys, or I end up doing as an REO sale? Third on the list. Do I want to take this asset back and add to my rental portfolio, or do I want to turn on owner finance the note or owner finance the property to a new buyer? I don't like that strategy. I don't like the creating a note. It ties up your equity in the deal. You might as well realize your capital, cash the property out, bring the money back in, and then double down. Go buy 2 assets. Otherwise, you're tying your equity up. And if you got to sell that asset off, if you don't have 12 months of seasoning, you're still going to take a big discount on it, and you're tying up your equity up for at least 12 months on that strategy. Okay. Avoid the weird assets and unfinished projects. This is definitely, if it's a weird asset, weird property, just don't waste your time. Steak and potatoes, single family homes, condos, duplexes, triplexes. Stick to that aspect of things. Don't deal with unfinished projects. This could be a really cool thing because somebody had this weird. No. You create more work the more outside the box you are. You got to ask yourself, does the asset have 3 profitable strategies? The first strategy is it going to be reperforming? This is a must. I've had people they overpay for an asset because they think you're turning into an REO, and the bar brings money to the table and reinstates, and doesn't turn to be reperforming for them a long period of time. If I get a deed in lieu, cash for keys, this is also a must. It's got to be profitable. And third thing, if I have to foreclose, is it going to make money? Those are the 3 must-have strategies of profitability. And like I say, I like to see if it's reperforming somewhere around a 12 to 24% ROI if it's a non-performing. Same thing. If I can deed in lieu and get it sold with days on market in 6 months, I want to see 20%. Foreclosure REO sale, same thing. I want to see a 20 to 30% ROI if I'm taking the asset back. Okay. If one of those strategies is not those numbers, you got to fade or reduce your bid. Taking it back as a rental, I'm not a fan of. Same thing, because I don't want to create more rental work for me. Depending on if there's on-site management. Like in the past, I've taken some stuff back that I got so dang cheap that it made sense for me to keep them as a rental, and there was on-site management to handle the rental. We've done that before with some condos in Florida and some other places. That made sense for that, but it hadn't made sense in a while. Now, with other areas, you may want to hold on to the property. Rent rates are going through the roof in some parts. That's dependent upon you and where that strategy is at. But like I said, you could owner finance the note or owner finance the property and take it back. Some people have done that. I just don't think it's a good strategy. When you look at the bang for buck and ROI, you're tying up equity. You might as well double down, or worst case, keep it as a rental and get a bigger bang for the buck for that. Okay. Now different is if you're taking over a property subject to, you're not buying the note, but you're taking over subject to. Then I would do a wraparound rental or do a rental agreement and a wraparound mortgage. That's a different strategy than buying the note. Okay. You always want to ask, has legal started? Where are they at? You ask to speak to the attorney or see the attorney notes. Review the servicing notes and the collateral file and see if there's any hardship letters or any background letters from the borrower, what they sent in, financial documents, hardship, what's the story behind the story. If they filed bankruptcy, check if it's, if their bankruptcy is filed well, the bankruptcy has to be filed on paper. Take a look at it, because a lot of times when they file that 9-page bankruptcy filing, they'll give you all the information you need. You may not need to do a lot more due diligence. Okay. Also, depending on how many years behind they are, or the last time legal was filed, you might run into statute of limitations. Most states, it's 4 years or 5 years of payments. So if a bar isn't paid in 8 years, and the state statute of limitation is 4 years to collect, you can't go after the full 8 years of mortgage payments. You're going after the most recent 4. I don't usually want to buy anything where somebody hasn't paid in 4 to 5 years. It's just going to be harder to get stuff taken care of. It's a cleaner assets, just what I like to look at. If you start getting something where they haven't paid and it's been vacant, you know that property's going to be trashed out. If it's trashed out, you're going to, unless you want to do full rehab, stuff like that, you want to be in the note business, not the real estate business, ladies and gentlemen. You also got to watch out for, some states have something called safe harbor. Florida was one of these things where you had all these HOAs or condo associations that weren't getting paid, so they had these huge liens on top of the unpaid balance. So Florida has a safe harbor law that if you buy the note and foreclose, the HOAs only do either 1% of the original sales price of the property or 1 year of HOA fees, whichever is less. Colorado at 6 months. Nevada, I think it's a year. Nevada, the HOA can wipe out the first lien, so you got to be very careful if you're buying condos in Nevada. Double check that. But Florida, if there's a huge HOA lien, I don't really worry about that. We only have to worry about the 1% of the original sales price. Now, when you're buying a note on a condo in Florida too, and you look at the appraisal districts and you see that the property isn't owned by the borrower, it's owned by the condo association, you know that the condo association is foreclosed out subject to your first lien. So sometimes it's easier to negotiate a cash for keys at that point. You may still need to foreclose or do consent to judgment to speed it up, but sometimes I've been able to negotiate with the HOA at that point. Say, listen, hey, I'll give you a year versus the 1% if you deed the property back over to us and we can get rock and rolling. And they're like, okay, let's do it. Okay. But that's the safe harbor law there for you. Any questions about that as we dive into session 12 here? More of the due diligence features. Those things are, like I said, things you want to look out for, things that'll pop up, and every state's a little bit different. This is why we tell you, start with 3 to 5 states, get to know what's going on in 2 to 3 states, and then add another state to it.